Hi there! This video is going to be going over auto accident files and workers' comp files. Now these particular kind of patients or files or anything like that, they're not very common. You won't experience a ton of these, but you need to know how to input them in the system, how to bill them correctly, all that good stuff. So I'm going to be going through all of that with you in this video. And the first thing I want to go over with you is the difference in charges for new patient appointments. Now, normally, a standard file, let me actually show you on a normal file here. Let me go to the beginning of this girl's file. So you'll notice she had an exam new patient for 10 minutes, her x-rays that she received, and her adjustment. Now, an auto accident file is different. You'll notice that their new patient exam was the 45-minute one. She also had her cervical, lumbar, and then this one view. Now, one views happen if only one part of an x-ray was taken. So, like I mentioned before, when you put in that cervical or lumbar x-ray chart, that's actually two different x-rays. And this one view is just half of that. And let me show you her travel card so that you can see what x-rays were taken on her. So she had both cervical, both lumbar, and then this flexion extension. That's what that x-ray one view is. You need to always make sure that if they have a flexion extension x-ray, that x-ray one view charge is in there. That's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is actually these patient documents right here. Every individual document needs to be scanned separately. So, for instance, normally in a standard patient file, the travel card is scanned along with their paperwork. In auto accident or workers' comp cases, that is not how you do it. You scan their paperwork in individually. You scan their travel card in individually. You'll also, every time you scan travel cards in, always make sure there's nothing written on the back. If there is, you need to scan that in as well. Office policies are always scanned by themselves anyway. Auto accident paperwork. There is separate paperwork for auto accident. This is the first part of it. There's also the auto accident personal injury disclosure. They will also sign this if they are workers' comp. Any information about the incident, always scan it in. Anything you get from their insurance, you scan it in. You actually keep all of their auto accident paperwork together in a file until the auto accident or workers' comp is complete. But anything like this, anything you get from insurance, traffic reports, anything like that need to be scanned in as well. And this verification of personal injury. So, unlike standard insurance verification, you have a claim number, you have the date of the accident, you have the insurance company, and then you need to call the insurance company to determine if they have MedPay and to get the correct claims address to send to. And that's going to bring us to our next point, which is insurance. Well, let me get that opened up. Now, in my previous video, I talked about how some of these things we would be going over in a later video. This is that video. The first thing is this managed care profile. If you remember from that insurance video, the only time you really have to touch this is if it's Blue Cross. You have to change it, otherwise all other insurances have commercial. Auto accident and workers' comp do not apply to that. If it's an auto accident case, you need to make sure auto accident is listed here. And the acute manifestation date is actually going to be the date of the accident. And that also applies to workers' comp cases. So date of the accident needs to go here. And then you're going to fill out this box. Now, depending on if this is an auto accident or workers' comp case, if this is workers' comp, you would hit yes here and no for auto accident. This is an auto accident, though, so I obviously have it the other way. This happened in the state of Wyoming. The country is USA. The accident date, again, is 2/4, and the related cause. Now, if it was a workers' comp case, you would hit employment. But since this is an auto accident, you will hit auto accident. The rest of that stays the same. You want to make sure date of birth and sex are filled in. the patient's married or single, and then this part. So you may not have the patient's auto insurance listed on this list here, and I went through briefly how to add insurance. So this is a little different than standard insurance. The big difference is that you will not put a modifier here, and there's no payer ID, but the rest of it stays the same. The only exception being, if this is a workers' comp case, you are going to hit other as opposed to group health plan. I do have this written down here at the office, so if you need to reference it through like actual written notes, those are available. But I went through my previous video. You put the name of the insurance company, the address, city, state, zip code, phone number. The only difference is no modifier, no payer ID. And if you watched my submitting insurance video, you'll note if you remember, that when I did my pre-billing report, the payer ID said it was missing for my auto accident cases. This is why. So nothing is wrong, you just don't put a payer ID for auto accident. Policy info is also going to be a little different. The patient ID is going to be their claim number. And you also want to make sure you have automobile medical selected. If this is through workers' comp, you're going to click that one right there. But we're automobile. And you also want to make sure that paper billing only is checked. Auto insurance and workers' comp are the only types of cases in which we bill by paper. I usually bill every odd Friday. I'll do HCFA, which is what the paper billing is called. They're HCFA forms. I will do that every odd Friday just because you don't have very many auto insurance or workers' comp cases at a time, if ever. So you don't need to do it every single week like you do with your standard insurance billing. Now, with that, you get to insurance billing. Now, it is a little bit of a process. You will input the start from and end on date the same way you would standard insurance, which is a year from today's date. But instead of hitting electronic submission, you will hit paper submission. And that'll only pull up people that have paper billing selected. And actually, let me just show you what that looks like. It'll look like this. These are my only auto accident people I have. You'll also notice, let me pull this down, no pre-billing report. So if there's no pre-billing report button, you don't have to worry about it. Then you would submit this. And instead of submitting it electronically through TriZetto like you do with standard insurance claims, you're actually going to be printing out on HCFAs. HCFAs are located in the filing cabinet here at the front desk. What you do is you load those in. Remember to have the front of the piece of paper laying face down in the printer. You'll have those print out, make sure they are all printed correctly, and you'll submit those off. But you don't submit HCFA forms by themselves. Now let me show you what I mean by that. So this is when this EHR comes into play the most. You use this EHR for looking at any patient's associated documents, but there are some other features in the EHR that you need to know about. The first is SOAP notes. Now that's this button right here, and if you right-click this button, would I like to have it? I say no. I like to see it from the very beginning at the top. The dates of service, I like to put a year just so it shows all possible notes that she may have. And then you'll see this. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. You cannot submit HCFA claims until their patient notes are done. Now, typically the patient health and event coordinator fills out these notes. If you need to know how, there is a written list at the front desk for how to put those notes in. But you want to make sure this is here. And you can tell if this is inputted because this insanely long note should be the first thing you see if you didn't hit it by date descending. So we're still in it, and then it ends. Most notes will look like these shorter ones here, for instance, this date right here. Most of them will look like that, but you'll know if the patient notes are done by that insanely long first one. So you'll have to print that off, You also have to go to your associated documents, and you're going to always print off this IR report. Those are x-rays. And then if they have a JR, to print off those as well. I'm getting these letters just from the end of the name of the file. So IR and JR, always print off for auto accident or workers' comp cases. And then where you submit, where you mail off, these insurance claims to, is actually listed on the top of your HCFA form. So you'll write that on an envelope, put all this information in, and send it out. Now you do have to print off all those documents every single time you submit HCFA forms. Every single time, otherwise insurance will say that they don't have enough information to be able to cover. It just makes more work for yourself. So always submit those documents. They need them, and it makes your life a lot easier in the long run. Another thing to keep in mind is that auto accident and workers' comp claims seem to take longer to get back to you. Most insurance companies will get you EOBs within like a week or a couple weeks. Auto accident is not like that. Most of the time it's a good month or two before you see them. So you have to be a little patient. If you're missing claims from the beginning, but you're getting later claims back for payment or consideration or declining payment, all that good stuff, make sure to resubmit those claims. And you have to keep on top of it. If any of the claims come back and they say they're not covering it for whatever reason, you need to call them, you need to ask them why, you need to ask them what they need to see. You want to try to get as much covered as possible for auto accident and workers' comp claims. Another important note is that legally, workers' comp claims, if they happened in the state of Wyoming, you cannot bill the patient for anything not covered by the workers' comp. So whatever workers' comp decides to pay is all you're going to get, unfortunately. You'll also notice one last thing. Her final appointment, I have scheduled as a C. If you remember, C means consult. So if we go to that date, the 11th, she's scheduled at a regular time, and that is just because Dr. Mike will be going over to determine if she's able to get out of the auto accident case or if we need to continue in the auto accident case. So he will tell you how often he wants to see them and for how long. For this particular patient, he wanted to see them 3 times a week for 4 weeks. And so at that last appointment, we're going to do a consult to determine what our next step needs to be. Those are the really important parts of auto accident or workers' comp cases. A lot of this is written down, so you can also reference this as needed because you don't normally have a lot or any auto accident or workers' comp cases. So it's good to have that written down. It is written down, so you're able to just read through and reference that. I hope this video was informative, and I will see you in the next video.